Brno is Czech Republic's second city and has a hardworking reputation, although commerce is just a small part of this quirky city story. Set where the Svitava and Svratka rivers meet, Brno was capital of Moravia from the early 1100s, right up to the communist era. Naturally, a lot of heritage remains, and you can take in a great deal of Gothic old Baroque sites on the cobblestone streets of the old town. But what really gives Brno its identity is its devotion to the weird, wonderful, and downright creepy. Now, here are the best things to do in Brno. Villa Tugendhat. Nothing scary about this one. Villa Tugendhat is up there with the Le Corbusier Villa Savoy in Paris as a prototype for modern architecture. Built from 1928 to 1930, it was designed by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe and is a UNESCO-listed masterwork of functionalism. This building changed the game thanks to its open floor plan and wall-sized rear windows. Villa Tugendhat's history is as important as its design. The Tugendhats were a Jewish couple and were forced to flee Brno after 1938. The villa became a base for Gestapo and then as a quarters for the Soviet army. It wasn't until 1967 that Greta Tugendhat returned and the restoration process began. The Old Town Hall. Here you get an idea of Brno's enduring sense of fun, as well as a neat view of the city from the roost of the tower. On approach, you might notice that one of the turrets on the town hall's decorative facade looks a bit skewed. The story goes that Anton Pilgrim, the building's architect, was screwed out of money by Brno City Council, and his payback was to mess with the design. The other version holds that he was simply too drunk to get it right. The building goes back to the 1200s and formed part of the city's defenses during the famous siege by Swedish forces in 1645. The town hall's curios. This is where it starts to get a bit wacky. Hanging from the ceiling in the passage beneath the tower is what looks like a large taxidermied crocodile. But don't be fooled. You are now in the domain of the legendary Brno dragon. In the city's earliest years, this beast terrorized the population of its livestock, and eventually a butcher got the creative idea of filling a fur sack with lime. After the dragon devoured the sack, it needed to quench its thirst and drank so much water it died. On the wall here is the Brno wheel, a wagon wheel supposedly built and delivered from the city of Teplice 45 kilometers away in just 12 hours as part of a medieval bet. It's a symbol for Brno's work ethic. Gregor Mendel's Abbey and Museum. The godfather of genetics spent almost his whole life in Brno and stands today as one of the 19th century's most important scientists. At the Abbey of St. Thomas, you can visit the garden in which he conducted his famed experiments on pea plants that helped him discover the secrets of heredity. For a bit more insight, the Mendel Museum outside the Old Town has detailed exhibits that shed light on his methods and how early experiments breeding mice attracted the disapproval of the church. Spielberg Castle. As the seat of the rulers of Moravia, this building has been around for almost as long as Brno has existed. And as you might expect, this has left the structure with a range of styles, from Romanesque to Baroque. It's a large hilltop fortress that has served all sorts of roles and seen a lot of action in its time. Like the town hall, Spielberg Castle helped repel the Swedish army during a siege in the 30 Years' War in the 1600s. At this time, it also doubled as a prison to house and torture Protestants, given that Brno was a Catholic city. You will learn at the museum here why Spielberg was no place to end up if you belong to the wrong denomination. Capuchin Monastery. And the morbid vibes keep coming, because the Capuchin Monastery on Capuchin Square is no place for the faint of heart. The exterior and ground floor are splendid and offer no indication of what lies beneath. The building is in the Baroque style with an ornate Rococo interior, including a memorable fresco and a preserved library with shelves of ancient volumes climbing to ornate ceilings. Go downstairs though, and you will be confronted by an 18th century crypt where members of the Cappuccino order and other important figures of the time are lying around mummified like they've been decided to take 200-year naps. Modern architecture. Alongside Villa Tugendat, Brno had a design boom in the early 20th century when some of the most beautiful landmarks beyond the old town were built. Brno is now prepared with some 70 functionalist buildings. Real architecture buffs can download a list and track them down on a walking tour. If you're willing to put in the legwork, you will be rewarded with some memorable yet unfrequented sites, nearly all of which continue to serve their intended public and residential roles. Cathedral of St. Peter and Paul. The Swedish siege of Brno in 1645 left a big impression on the city and put the clocks at this dominant cathedral in a bit of a time warp. In yet another of Brno's quirky stories, it is said that the Swedes agreed to give up on their plans to take the city if they hadn't managed to conquer it by midday on the August 15, 1645. Resourceful as ever, the Brno defenders decided to improve their odds and brought the clocks at the cathedral an hour forward to chime at 11 instead of 12. To this day, the noon chimes take place at 11. Brno Underground. A maze of tunnels and chambers sits underneath the cabbage market in the old town. In 2011, these were opened to the public as part of a compelling 40-minute walking tour. The square above dates back to the 1200s, and many of the passageways that weave underneath are also from this time. You'll see how food was preserved here in the medieval era. Visit a historic wine cellar and will also be able to peruse an authentic alchemist's laboratory. As ever in history of Brno, there's a dark side. Looming underground is a real pillory, a public torture device for criminals in the Middle Ages. The Cabbage Market. Above the underworld is a marketplace that has also been in use since the 1200s. You can still buy vegetables at the farmer's market, as well as taking a look at some of the monuments around. One of these is the Parnas Fountain with its statue of Hercules. It is said that in the old times, fishmongers showcased their stock by letting their carp swim in the fountain waters. On the south side, Reduta Theater is a concert hall that goes back to Renaissance times. In 1767, an 11-year-old Mozart performed here with his sister. Where do you guys want to go next? Comment down below. And also don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And by the way, check out our channel for more videos like this. And as always, see you on the next video.